Okay, you're welcome. It's Black Belt Interviews. Me, Master David Hodson. I'm very delighted and pleased to welcome today Grand Master Douglas from Ireland. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Master. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me and having the time to do this. I'm really looking forward to hearing everything about your Taekwondo journey, and anything you pass on to us instructors or students, masters, will be greatly appreciated. So a lot with the interviews, in many times we start with the history of the Grand Master, where it began for you. I know it was some time ago, and we were talking just before we started about that. So where was it, and how old were you when you started Taekwondo?
Well, first of all, 1973, July actually this year now, it'll be 50 years. So a long time ago. I started back, I was 20 years of age when I started Taekwondo. So at the time then in Ireland, there was only two Taekwondo clubs, and they were both in Dublin. We had one in one side of the Dublin and the other side. We called them, at the time we used to call them Dublin number 1 and Dublin number 2 club. So right. I joined the Dublin number 2 club under the instructor then was Mr. Howard, now Grand Master Howard, with the RITA. But we were all part of the RITA at that stage, you know. But as I said, there was only the one group. But I actually joined, would you believe, I joined as a bet. And I had these guys they had taken up Taekwondo. And he said to me, "Oh no, you wouldn't be able to do this, you wouldn't." And I said, "Oh, but let's see how it goes. I bet you I'll stay longer than you." Obviously the years have gone by, and that's how I actually joined. I at the time I was around the Bruce Lee was around the area, and all the films were coming out at that time and everything else, and everybody was involved in martial arts in some form or other, whether it be karate or Wing Chun or whatever it may be, and Taekwondo obviously with the two clubs only. So I went down to this place in Sean McDermott Street in Dublin, where 75 people turned up to join.
Wow.
75 people, yeah. I don't know how we got into, I don't know how we put everybody in the hall. It was great, just everybody wanted to do some form of martial art, you know. So I said, I went down myself and my brother-in-law went down, and that part of Dublin, Sean McDermott Street, and back in 73 was fairly tough area. Do you know what I mean? So I had a lot of tough people around the area, but we did have an assistant instructor. He was a black tag at the time, and he was as rough as nails. I think I really think to this day his job was to weed out all the guys that couldn't take it.
Wow.
He was tough, you know. But I stayed there for 4 years, 4.5 years, I think, 1973. At the time then, when I went for my black belt, it was 1977, and only 2 people out of 75 people came through to black belt. Myself and another chap. He's still training in Taekwondo. He does a bit of kickboxing as well, as other stuff as well. So yeah, that's how I started, really, you know. As I said, I was 20, but wasn't long after getting married, actually. At the time as well. So yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. At first, the first couple of classes I went down, you know yourself, when you go down to these places, you're looking at people in their white pajamas.
Yeah, of course.
And what are they doing? They're shouting and everything else. And of course, the instructor at the time was very rigid. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we had to keep our mouths closed at the end of it. We all just went down to look first, and then we joined. But yeah. So that's where I did start. The clubs obviously, you know, come on from then. The association grew and grew and grew. But as I said, at the time, there was only the 2 clubs in the country. I went through everything. About 1977 then. Actually, it was on, I can tell you the date, I was only looking at it there this morning, 27th of August, 1977. Wow. I graded for my black belt. Yeah. The night before I graded for a black belt. You know the way some people in the going for a black belt don't want to train for a week or two in case they get injured. But we had a tournament the night before.
Okay.
It was held in the National Stadium here in Dublin.
Yeah.
And we had a tournament then. And the next day then I got up and went and done my black belt under General Choi, now Grandmaster Riki Ha, and Master JC Kim. So
yes.
there was 3 people on the panel. So tough enough panel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, do you know what I think about it, you know? And the general was actually very, very nice. I think that was my first encounter with him, really, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Because as a colour belt, you wouldn't have seen him at all, really. You've seen him in at different things and all that, but that was my first encounter with the general. But yeah, so when I went for the black belt that day, it was fine. I had another who was still a friend of mine. He is now Grandmaster as well, Grandmaster Ben O'Toole. He graded for his second degree that day, and I graded my first degree. And have it be when I come up to the power, he said, he turned around and said to me, "I saw you last night. You don't need to grade. You don't need to break," because I had won the power.
Wow.
Spot sidekick, 3 boards, left leg, 3 boards, right leg. So that was handy enough for me. I didn't have to do the power that day. It was grand. And it was like Brendan, he had to do the same. Brendan had won all the sparring that night as well. And he more or less said the same thing to him. I don't need to see a spar. I've seen you sparring last night, because he was at the tournament the night previous, you know.
Wow, wow.
So, yeah, so it was as I say, along with Master Riki Ha at the time and Master JC Kim. So yeah, it was an interesting journey. After that, then where do we go? From there, I opened my first club after I got my black belt.
Yeah,
1978. But leading up to I'll just go back to a little bit.
yeah.
I might drop back and forward.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem.
Just going back to the grade, the before the grading. You know, sometimes I look at people nowadays and you say, "Oh, you're coming up to your black belt. To me, how much are you training? How hard are you training?" And you're training. "Oh, you're only training twice a week." I mean, no, you're just training twice a week. You want to train 3 or 4 times, at least 3 or 4 times. 5 times a week coming up to a black belt grading. I remember myself and another guy, we trained twice on a Sunday, but we trained every other day.
Yeah.
So for a full year before the grading, I trained 8 times a week, which was hard going.
Yeah,
I was only married a couple of years at the time, you know, and I had small children. But we trained very, very hard for that grading.
Wow.
Because you know, back in the day, then like the power was, you had to break tiles.
Yeah.
You had to break wood, obviously, with your feet, tiles with your hands. Since that's all gone now, you know. But yeah, so as I said, we trained for a long, long time before black belt grading. After that, then I think I was burnt out. I took about 8 months off, and I did nothing for 8 months.
Okay.
But that was back in 1977. Right, actually, come into 78, it would have been.
Yeah.
But since then, I've never stopped doing taekwondo.
Right.
I've never stopped. It just became a passion with me, you know.
Yeah, of course.
So and that, you know, and that's what I've been doing ever since. But around 1978, then I opened my first club, and it was in Kildare, which is about an hour and a half or so from Dublin. And I was going back and forward there for about 3 or 4 members, trying to build the club for 9 months. So it was hard going. Yeah, unfortunately I had to close it after about a year or so, you know. But then I went on to open 2 other clubs back in Dublin, very successful clubs. I had opened a club here in where I live, and I was there for 12 years in the school hall.
Okay.
At the time.
Yeah.
It was a great club. It was a great club. With that club, we used to they were eager, and they were hungry for tournaments. They were good kids, you know.
Yeah.
We used to bring them all around Ireland and all the competitions. You know, we'd hire a bus, bring them around. We'd have about 40 or 50 competitors all of the time going. Wow. They were just, you know, it's unlike, I don't know what you see it or not, but I see it today that the kids, they want to do taekwondo, but they don't really want to compete anymore. Some of them do. There's a very, very small amount of people that want to compete, I think, anyway. But then back then we used to bring them all around the place. Even apart from around Ireland, we used to bring them to England. So we'd organise a bus from Dublin. We'd go onto the ferry, off of Holyhead, and then we drive off to different places. We went to Leicester, Coventry, London.
Wow.
We brought these kids everywhere, but because they wanted to compete, and because as an instructor, I wanted to see them. I want to see them do that as well. I mean, we did very, very well.
Yeah.
But it's gas. When I think about it now, some of the students that joined, I had opened that particular club. I opened in 1983, and I still have 1983. I have one guy still trains me. Okay, and in 1985, more guys joined, and I have still instructors from 1985 that still train with me today. Some of them took a break for a couple of years, but they're back a long, long time, and they're instructors, 5th dans now and 4th dans. Yeah, and they're doing really, really well. Excellent. But, so that was when, as I said, I opened that club down. I opened another club down the north side of Dublin. That went well for about 2 years. And then I moved around a couple of places. I opened so many different clubs. I settled down in another place over in the south side of Dublin, I'll just say. And that went very, very well. We had a big membership. We were doing okay, but after that, then where am I going to? Where am I going with this?
So were you working as well? Were you working?
I was working. I was working as well. I haven't done Taekwondo full time, only in the last 12 years. Yeah. I'll come to that now in a while. But I was doing a full-time job. I was running 2 clubs at the time, and I had a family. And my children were involved in Taekwondo as well. Mm. And my daughter is actually still involved. She teaches with me. She's a 5th dan. Yeah. My other son got as far as 2nd degree, and unfortunately can't train anymore. And the other lad, I've 3 children. And my other young lad wasn't for him. He's as far as black tag, and unfortunately he just went off. He's doing his own thing. He's into IT. That's his job now, But, so that's where I am at the moment. You asked me, did I compete? I competed. My first tournament was that tournament I said as a colour belt, because there wasn't very, very many tournaments. But when I got my black belt, I started competing then, and a lot of the stuff then, kind of anything that I won, I would have been from black belt level up. There was very, 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 very few colour belt trophies. Yeah. So I entered a lot of competition. I competed up till I was about 35. We're going to say 75. I competed up to about 35 years of age. And then there was a tournament, I think, down in Waterford, south of Ireland. And I won everything that day. I got the overall champion. I said, now it's time to finish. Just finish on a high, Yeah, so. Yeah.
Were there veterans categories then, or were you just all in with everyone?
No, everybody's in together,
Wow.
There was no, even before we, the first time I wore hand and foot pads was at European Championships in Crystal Palace in 1980.
Oh, right, yeah. We
had never sparred with hand and foot pads beforehand. And it was just hands and feet, just, get stuck in. Do you know what I mean? You're allowed to hit to the body, but, make contact with the body, but very, very limited contact in the face, especially with fists and that, you know what I mean? So, but after, when we went to the European Championships in 1980, I remember the instructor come around telling us about, if I'm not mistaken, about a week beforehand. And he brought in a whole load of sparring gear. It was like the old June Ree gear.
Yes, of course.
Real tough, and it was, just here, And he brought us a whole load of gear in. Everyone of us was taking part in the European. Says, you'll be wearing this next week. So it's like, but we managed anyway. We done okay. Yeah, of course. So putting on the kit, did that bring more control, or did it
give the opportunity for more contact. I mean,
that's a hard one to say. I think once people get the gear on, they think they're inclined to, or they are inclined to make more contact. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why I think where the referees have to control it more so these days.
Yeah.
Then it was probably a little bit more hard contact than it is now. You know what I mean? It's a bit less contact, as we all know, and that's for a reason. Things would change. You know, taekwondo would change. You know, the life has changed. People have different jobs. You don't want to get hurt going into. You don't want a broken hand. You don't want a busted nose going into work the next day or anything else like that. So I think it has changed in that respect. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, so you know, the sort of things you've been talking about are just amazing. That grading to first degree with that panel is pretty special. And to add to that, you did the competition
the night before
as well, in the presence of General Choi.
Yeah.
I mean, that is something else, isn't it? Really. I mean,
yeah. Grading's back then where because Grandmaster Ree at the time was Master Ree at the time. I'm not sure whether he was a master or 6th degree. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember then. But he graded everybody. He done all the colour belt gradings. Because we didn't have 4th degrees in the country at the time. So when Master Ree used to come over to do the gradings, it would be every couple of months, 3 or 4 months, 5 months. Sometimes it would go to 6 months. Depends, really. You know what I mean? So depends on himself and when he could get over himself. You know what I mean? But it would be an all-day grading. I mean, there's no such thing as coming to do a grading as a yellow tag or a yellow belt, and then you can go home. You stay there. You stay to the very, very end.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah, and I think that was the teacher's perseverance, really. Do you know what I mean? By Master Ree, and he was tough. He was a tough man at the time. He used, because his English at that time wasn't fantastic. I think like he'd only come over here, like taekwondo really only come into this country, and it started off around 1968, but it wasn't taekwondo as we know today.
No.
I think the association that I joined at the time, which was the RITA, Public Foreign Taekwondo Association, they were only formed in 1972. So when I joined in 73, they're only really a year gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the gradings, as I said, I'll go back to another incident why I joined as well. Is I remember at a tournament, there was a tournament on. I'd only just joined, I think. I was only a white belt, a couple of weeks gone, and there was a tournament on in the National Stadium. I went to see it, and I really enjoyed it. It was. I remember it was. It's got how things stay in your mind, you know. It was Turkey versus Ireland, and just the two team, and all the sparring was no hand of foot pads, just rough as nails. And I said, that's good. Yeah, I like that kind of, get stuck in there, you know.
Yeah.
But on that night as well, there was a grading, would you believe, in front of everybody. You know, the National Stadium holds about 2,000 people.
Wow.
So I remember my instructor at the time, he was first dan, and then he graded actually for his second dan that night. And other people graded for 4th degree that night. And the guys that graded for 4th degree that night were actually put onto the team to fight Turkey. You know what I mean? So they went straight from black tag. They passed, they'd done the grading, and that was, as I said, it's gone back 73, you know.
Yeah.
It was a different ball game there, you know. So after a while then I started teaching. I love teaching. I'm still teaching.
Yeah.
You know, I really enjoyed it. I love to bring people on from, you know, when you get a blank page.
Yeah.
And you're bringing them on, and you're filling that blank page through the grades, yellow, green, blue, red, black, and up there as well. And you know, for me, you know, that's I really enjoyed it. I think that's what taekwondo as an instructor is all about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the first time I met the general was at my black belt grading. I had done, after that then, as a black belt going up through the grades, I'd done many seminars when he was over here in Ireland. I'd done all the seminars he was here. But one of my special things was when I went for my 6th degree, and that was in 1999. I went with Mick Thompson, who was 8th degree ITF HQ. So Mick are good friends. And both was graded in Trinity College here in Dublin, and there was a big grading. The general and Choi-Hong was over to do a seminar at the time. So while the general, after we had done the seminar, you know, usually you do the technical seminar, and then on the last day you're going to do your grading. So we were all brought downstairs, anybody who was grading, and we were graded under Choi-Hong. So myself, Mick, and a few other people went from 4th degree, 5th degree, 6th degree, right up. We had done a grading that day. And what was special for me, and what I'm getting to say is this, that on the night after the grade, because then you never got your results. Even going back to my 4th degree, I had to wait 6 weeks to get a letter in the post to get my results, which was, you know, you wouldn't hear them at these days, you know. But on that particular night, we all went out for a meal. General Che, Choi-Hong, a few other people, higher ranking people, and I was with them as well. So at the time I remember, and it sticks in my head, General Che had said to me, or not General Che, Choi-Hong had said to me, we're around the same age. I think he's about a year older. And says, he gave me a nice compliment. He said, you move very, very well. I thought, thank you very much, sir, you know. So this was at the meal we were talking. And General Che and Choi-Hong then were speaking privately. We're all at the table, you know, and they were speaking down at the end of the table. And then the general he called me up, and he said, yeah, you're doing very well today. And he said, seeing that you've done so well, I'm going to give you your results now. So gave me the results at the table in the restaurant. I passed my 6th degree.
Wow.
I thought that was actually special to me, you know.
100%. Yes, sir. Yeah.
So it's So it's we had good times, you know. Good times when the general, when obviously I wasn't that close to the general by any means. You know what I mean? But you know, it's just an ordinary instructor like everybody else. But for me, that night was special. I'll never forget that one. 6th degree, you know. But when in 2002, then I took over as national coach, and we had a small amount of people, small amount of black belts that wanted to go forward for tournaments at the time. So at the time I was national coach. We were coming up to the World Championships. I think it was 2002 I took over the World Championships in Poland in 2003. 2003. So I had put a team together. Sparring wise, we were doing okay. Patron wise, that was my forte for the patrons. So I took on the team, and we went away and won the World Championships in 2003. Wow. We beat Poland in the final on the center stage. Wow. You know what I mean? That was good. So we came back in 2003 as world champions.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Who were the names at the time that were in your team?
In my team, there was Kevin Hannigan was the team captain. There was Brian O'Connor. There was Cormac Llewellyn. There was Stephen Dillon, and a guy called John Dargan. There were 6, but there was 5. The 5 guys. John wasn't on the patron team; he was on the sparring team. So they were there, and we got some nice photographs taken with the big lovely trophies after we got back and everything else. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was good, and I loved coaching as well. And you know, again, to bring what I would call a ragball team. Hope people don't mean offense by that, but it's like taking a few people that weren't doing very good. We weren't all flexible, but to bring them and put a team together and to win the World Championships, for me, I thought that was the icing on the cake for me as a coach, and also on the icing cake for them as well. In 2003, we were in Croatia. We come back with medals as well. 2004, can't remember where we were then. I remember going back to Germany as the World Championships, as the World Champions. It was in Germany, it was in Dortmund in 2005, and we got to the final again.
Right, right.
So unfortunately, we didn't. Argentina beat us in the final, and we got the silver medal. So I had changed, I think, one or two people on the team patron, but yeah, it was good, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Certain amount of work needed to do that as well, so isn't there?
Yeah, yeah.
Sessions and practice and.
Well, we were probably training at the time, although we were doing a full day training session every week. But in between, I would take the pattern team specifically, and 3 times a week we would go over the pattern. Yeah. It was the way we did it at the time. We used to videotape the guys and say, look, we'll go around the video and they'll see who was making a mistake here, what you're doing here, what you're doing there. And then it was great at the time. So I think having a videotape was ideal. Instead of me just saying this, this, and this, let them look at it, let them see the mistakes they're making themselves, and they realize themselves, okay, I'm a bit out there, we've got to match this, we've got to do this. And, you know, they took it on board, and they were great guys, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
fantastic. Again, special time, sir. Great time for you.
Yeah, in 2005, I decided, well, that's, you know, I've had enough then for coaching. I became director of coaching. My team captain then, Kevin, took over as national coach then.
Yeah.
And then they went very, very well. We lost the National Association Award. At that time, there was an NA and an AA, as you probably know.
Okay.
The ITA took over and have done very, very well since, you know what I mean, since then. Yeah, so that brings me up to where are we? We're up to 2005, 2006. Yeah, but in between that, I mean, I've always been the organizer of stuff. You know, I would get in, and because I love Taekwondo so much, and because it's a passion to me, I was the organizer of many tournaments, many international tournaments over here in Ireland, many local tournaments, many seminars, international seminars. We ran 4 IICs in this country, which I was part of organising. Wow. One of the main organisers with a team I had around me, and you know, and that's what I want to do. I love doing that. I'll go back to just on a note. In 1990, we ran, myself and a friend of mine who wasn't involved in Taekwondo, but his son was, and another guy, with the association's permission, we ran a 4 nations tournament in the National Stadium.
Okay.
That now, yeah. So we had Ireland, England, Germany, and Holland in.
Okay.
And it was just 4 teams, and it was a great event. We had put them up in the hotels and anything else. We had the usual party after the awards and anything else. But the teams are brilliant. You had team patron, team sparring, team power, and I can't remember. I think Holland won that, or was it England? I'm not too sure. I can't remember. It just goes back that far. But then in 1993, I went one further. Some people think I'm mad. I went one further in 1993, and I arranged a 12-nation tournament.
Okay. So
we had in Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, Germany, Holland. Oh God, I can't remember the rest of the teams. But we had invitational 2 teams we brought in, one from Australia and one from Russia.
Okay.
So we had a 12 nations tournament there in 1993. That went off very, very well. Again, like that, we had put them up and everything else, and you know, it was a great, some talent there.
Yeah, sure.
A guy called Tony Curtis from Australia. He was exceptional. You know, it was like, I don't know, do you remember, you know, Kenny Walton?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Kenny was, I always remember Kenny going back in the old days, right? It was like, I used to call him a fighting machine. Just keep going, fighting. Tony Curtis was like that, you know what I mean? Excellent guy, you know. But yeah, so, and then as I said, there was plenty of tournaments there that I organised and seminars, and I just wanted to get involved. Just that kind of thing, you know. And this was what I was running my own clubs as well, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you obviously take a lot on, sir, with it all, but like you say, the passion and your love for it is why you do it. I mean, like you said, I've been involved in those kind of events, like you say, and they can take over, even though you're a teacher and a family guy, and you have your job and everything. So, wow. I mean, that's amazing dedication and everything.
It's actually, I enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? No, in recent years, the last couple of years, I've taken a bit of a step back. Do you know what I mean? Because at the moment now, I'm a professional instructor at the moment, have been for the last 12 years. I run 3 schools. But I have good people around me. You know what I mean? As I said earlier on, I have people that have been with me since 83 and 85, and they're still instructors, and they help me out in the clubs. My daughter is a big help. As I said, she's a 5th dan. We have a little dragon program which we run about 18 years ago. When I was teaching smaller children, the 4 to 6-year-olds, I always found that, I always found that they could never really grasp it at that age. Not traditional, or not, I don't mean traditional Taekwondo, but the technical side of Taekwondo. You know what I mean? With the sine wave and everything else. They couldn't really get it. So about 18 years ago, I developed a program called Little Dragons. So we have a 5 program thing. So they start off as, they have their own little Taekwondo suit, a little dragon on the back of a little trophy. And then we take them from about 4.5, 5 years of age up to about 8 years of age. And then after 8 years of age, they go to junior Taekwondo. But the Little Dragon program has 5 different aspects of it. They start off with white belt, and then they go yellow, green, blue, red, and black. Then you go to orange belt, same again. Purple belt, same again. All the yellow, green, blue, red, and black, and then up to brown belt, and then purple belt, brown belt, and then the last one, then, which one person so far has ever got to the end of the black. But my 2 granddaughters are itching at they're biting at the thing now. They don't want to move to junior at 8.5 now. They don't want to move to junior till they get this particular belt. You know what I mean? But the way we used to do is we don't grade them in the sense that you're on the floor grading, is we assess them. And there's no fee, obviously, so it's easier as well. So we assess them on what they do. They learn 4 things over 4 weeks. Then they're assessed, and if they know the 4 things, they get a stripe on the belt, and so on and so on and so on, up to about, they've got to do about 20 things before they go on from white belt to purple to orange belt, and then a new set of 20 starts, and then up as far as purple, then a new set, and so on and so on. That's the way it's done at the moment. So I was teaching them up to about 3 years ago, and then I said, well, I'm getting a little bit older. I'll be running around after 4.5, 5-year-olds. So I handed that over to my daughter.
Yeah.
She looks after the 3 schools, and she has Little Dragons in the 3 schools. So she has waiting list at the moment, which is great. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, fantastic.
Yeah. So once they go from Little Dragons, then they go into junior. So by the time they get into junior, they have a fair idea. It's not perfect by any means, but you have a basic idea of what they're doing. So we can mold them a little bit better. Do you know what I mean? I have a couple of guys, would you believe, started with me in the Dragons about 18 years ago, and they are 4th degrees now and 3rd degrees. Wow. And still training. And helping out and instructing and all that kind of stuff, you know. But so that's where I started. I think when I started that program about 18 years ago, there was very, very few people doing it at the time, you know. I know since then, you know, your Little Tigers, you know, your Warriors and everything else and all that kind of stuff, you have loads of them there as well. But I think I thought at the time it was the right move to move the smaller ones into, the program is designed for fun and games. So although they're learning Taekwondo, they're learning the blocks, they're doing everything, they're learning the kicks and everything else, but to them, they're kicking the pads, you know, the focus pads, kicking the air shields, but to them, they have a great fun.
Yeah.
We're learning, we're teaching them all the time, and they're getting better and better and better. And then I've often found that even some of the instructors that have taken them their classes afterwards, when they move up, you find that the ones that move from Dragons to junior, compared to somebody has never done anything before, there's a huge difference.
Yeah,
they have to learn it much quicker, you know. So, That's one of the programs. That's one of the programs we did.
Yeah, absolutely. So get them to do things that that are beneficial for their advancement, but they're thinking they're just having fun and enjoying themselves. Yeah.
Oh, it's it is really good. But we've like yourself, no doubt. We've good members, and we've members that need a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like any taekwondo club, like any martial arts club, you'll always get the guys that shine and that are really, really good. They become natural.
Yeah.
But then you'll always get on the other side of the coin, you'll get the guys that are not natural and that need work. And I think they're the ones that stay longer because the challenge is there for them. But sometimes, and I'm not saying all the time, sometimes you have the student that it becomes natural to them and they get bored.
Sure.
I mean, it's not a challenge anymore for them, So I found over my years of teaching that you have, them guys that really, really want to work hard and really, really want to get there, They're the best, Not they're all great, but
yeah. No, I agree. So that's exactly how we see it here as well. That, like you say, you get your talented ones, and but the guys that just keep coming and steady improvement.
Yeah,
it means so much, doesn't it? And some of those they turn into your stars in the end, don't they?
They do actually, yeah. And it's it's great to see it in progress. From it's like a seed putting it in the ground, and you see them blossom and grow and getting better, and the eagerness of them, and when they get so far up the grades, you want to see, and then blue belt, and 2 years later they might be seeing the black belt, and you say that to them, oh, 2 years time now, I know 2 years time to a kid is an eternity, but sometimes 2 years, how fast time goes, and you say to them, look, in 2 years time, this is what I want you working towards, you know what I mean? You're going to be working towards now. Don't prepare for your black belt 6 months beforehand. You got to be prepared well in advance. You're going to be looking at the big picture,
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
Mm.
Now, these are great points you're making, and great advice for all instructors and school owners. If they're looking at building their school through the younger people, they need to take on a program like what you've developed.
I think so, yeah. For me, and I know even with my instructors, I know when yourself when you're bringing on an instructor as an assistant instructor, and I've had some of my instructors come to me, even though they might be third or fourth degrees, and you start them off doing a little bit of warm up or whatever it may be, and they development, bring them along, and you start doing the theory with them, and they realize, a couple of them have come back to me and said, I didn't realize how much I didn't know. I didn't know this stuff until I started teaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now that I'm teaching, I have to learn it. I have to go back to the books. I have to make sure, because as instructors, as yourself, you're out there, you're teaching them, and they just focus in on what you want them to do, whether it be patterns or whether it be sparring, whether it be wherever it may be. But as an instructor, when you've got to sit there, stand there in front of the class, you have to know your stuff.
Yeah.
And even, and I say this to my assistant instructors, you have to know your stuff, because when you ask at the end of the class or even during the class, have you any questions, you have to know the answer.
Yeah.
One thing I've always said to them, as advice to them and advice to any instructor, if you don't know the answer, don't fabricate it. Don't turn around and say, make up a story. Just say, I'm not too sure. I'll come back to you on that one. I think for me, that's very, very important as an instructor, because if you fabricate the information, it'll come back to bite you. Do you know what I mean? So, and I've always said that to my guys and girls that instruct, that help me out instruct them. If you don't know the answer, just tell them, I don't know, I'm not 100% sure, I'll come back to you. We've all been in that boat. No matter who you are. As a Grand Master, we've been in that boat. I mean, because like the General has said, he's always had the book beside him when he was doing a technical seminar. He can't remember everything. I mean, people might say to me, what's this, what's that? And I'll say, okay, I'm 99.9% sure it's this, but live with me, and I'll go to my book, or I'll come back to the next class. Remember, you know what I mean? I think that's very important as an instructor. That you don't, you tell them the truth. Anyway,
That's a good point. So yeah, one I've had to use as well myself. Yeah, if you don't know something, you don't know it, and then that's. But you've got the access to finding out, haven't you? The next lesson or whatever.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I think taekwondo these days, compared to when I started training years and years ago, right? It's got more technical. Do you know what I mean? And technically in a good way. Do you know what I mean? I mean, years ago when you went into competition, now I'm talking maybe 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, you went into competition, there's no lines or levels. It was whoever kicked the highest looked the best.
right,
Do you know
right.
what I mean? And they were judged on, oh, he looks good. I said, well, technically he's doing it wrong. But, you know, it wasn't, there was no, now it's got to be, it has to be the proper line. And, you know, the line of the body, it has to be the proper levels. You know, it'd be high, middle, low, wherever it may be. And I think that's a good thing. You know what I mean? And I think the sine wave for me has brought in taekwondo to be much better. To be much better. It's not as old school was, you know, old school was old school. It was a cross between Shotokan and Taekwondo as they generally developed. Anyways, we all know, right? But now it has changed and it has evolved and got better. And if you don't know your stuff, especially when it comes down to the technical side, or when it comes down to the theory, if you're asking students to do a grading and you're asking them in the Korean terminology, you have to know your stuff as well. The same as your instructors have to know the stuff. They have to know as well. Yeah. You know, when it comes to gradings, in for me, we started a system there some time ago. I think it was pre-COVID. I think everything was pre-COVID these days. But we started a system that instead of asking them questions at the table, we give them theory beforehand. So what we normally do is we give them 5 questions, but we give them a list of stuff they've got to learn. And it can be asked any of them questions beforehand. So when it comes up to the grading, then theory is already done. You can call them up for different things, obviously, at the table, but as you know yourself. But for us, I think it works, especially if you have a big grading. And a big grading, if you're bringing people up to the table all the time, you're asking loads and loads of questions, then obviously the time is getting longer for people on the floor. They're waiting and waiting and waiting. And these days, I think people just want to be in, do the grading, and go home. Really. But that works for us. I'm not saying it works for everybody else, but it works for us certainly, because we would normally do the theory test about maybe a week beforehand, or maybe a couple of days before the grading, and that's for me, it saves time. Yeah, you know what I mean, and that way. But
we do a similar thing, like you said. Back when we were only having a few people, you seem to have forever, and now if you've got a significant number of people grading, you've got to get your time slots right, otherwise you're there all night.
Well, it could be, well, it's like, as you know yourself, I'm sure, and I'm preaching to the converter when you say, if you have a big grading, when you're going to slot your gradings in, you're going to get white belts and your green belts, and then your more senior grades coming up at the later stage. But as I said earlier on, you know, back in 73, 74, you went to the day of the grading, you stayed till the end. You might be there at 9 o'clock in the morning, although you're only 20 minutes on the floor. You're finished at 9:30. You're still there at 7 o'clock if the grade is not finished. You know, these days I think we're a bit more flexible. We allow for people for work and other things, and I think that's important too. You know, that you slot your times in, and then everybody goes home happy. And you know, at the end of the day, is when you want to keep people happy that way. You know.
Of course, yes, Well, so you've been saying, if I can take you back to some early bits that you mentioned, I just find that very interesting. Obviously, walking into a dojang back in the 70s, a 20-year-old guy in Dublin. You said it's quite rough around there at the time, somewhat.
It was tough enough. It was a tough enough area, So I think the guy there was, as I said earlier on, was the weirdest out.
So he could work out who should be there and who shouldn't be, I suppose.
But
his methods were quite different to your methods now. The way you teach, where you've come along, you kind of seem to understand every age group at every stage. And
I think back then it was rough and ready. There's no such thing as scientific training. There is now, thank God. I mean, you know yourself now. Even at the time in 1973, we trained on wooden floors, concrete floors. and their bare feet. The conditions of hands and the conditions of feet. They don't seem to do much conditioning these days, unless you're actually particularly going to go into power in a tournament or whatever it may be. And then you should be conditioning your hands or your feet, wherever it may be. But now, these days, we're all training on mats, aren't we?
Yeah.
So, you know, you're doing push-ups on the mats. Don't do push-ups on the concrete floors or the wooden floors anymore. You know what I mean? Although sometimes, you know, especially with my senior grades, they'll say push-ups off the mats onto the floor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At least they developed the knuckles a little bit better, you know. But I think that's important. It's something that you see so many people not conditioning, and then they're going into tournaments and they're trying to break with a fourth fist or back fist or whatever it may be, and they're wrecking themselves because they're not conditioning themselves properly. You know, back in the day we had no choice. We used to break roof tiles. I don't know whether you ever done that or not, but we used to break roof tiles, Marley roof tiles, and they were hard tiles. So going through the grades, it depends on what grade you wear. As a colour belt, you got a certain amount of different tiles, and then you got piranha pine, which we used to break at the time as well. Right. And the wood in Ireland is not easy. It's not easy to break. You know, it can be damp, and it can be, you know, it can be. I've often seen people taking out wood and it'd be soaking wet and putting it up in the holder. Right. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was hard. It was hard training then. It was, as I said, it wasn't scientific. You'd go in. The guy that we used to have at the time, as I say, he was a black tag at the time. He used to come around and he used to kick. You hadn't got a good stance. He used to kick your feet from under you, make sure your stance is wrong. Stand up your back leg. Your back leg's not straight enough. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, if I don't know you, I've probably done it, or maybe other people did it back in the day, was, you know, you wouldn't get away with these days, of course, and you used to lie down on the floor, right, and you used to run across your tummy muscles. You had to grip the tummy when you ran across the tummy muscle. Yeah. Or you used to get the, you know, when you're sitting down, do the butterfly with your legs, you know that one? And you used to get a guy stand on that leg, one leg on that one, and push it down. That wouldn't be heard of these days, you know what I mean? That was the kind of training we used to do back then. But sorry, go on. Yeah, so
that and the sparring, and you know, you came through all that. You excelled at that. You competed. You know, you did all these things. You can obviously since then you've been able to relate to children and people that aren't that way inclined, sort of thing. Was that easy for you, or did you have to adjust to that, or have you always been able to relate to different people? Some people would be just, this is Taekwondo, everyone should do it this way, it's the hard way, sort of thing.
Well, you see, I think because it's gone scientific these days, you have to, and because times are changing, and because of everything has to be politically correct, you have to be very, very careful. Do you know what I mean? If you do something these days and you do it wrong, but then you're open to scrutinization from people. You're open to insurance problems. Do you know what I mean? If you do something and somebody injures themselves, in this day and age, as we all know, they can sue you, whatever. You have to be very, very careful there as well. But at the same time, I like to bring on the students carefully. Do you know what I mean? I'm not too easy with them. I'm not easy with them, actually. People turn around and say I'm a little bit too hard, but I'm not the old way, if you know what I mean. I try to stay within anything I learn from other people as well. And no matter who you are, no matter what grade you are, no matter what age you are, you can always learn from somebody. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you see, I've often seen stuff on Grandmaster McPhail's TKD coaching. Yeah, of course. And people are doing stuff. I said, yeah, I've done that years and years ago. I've done it 40 years ago. But they're doing it with a different slant. And that's great. Do you know what I mean? And I think you can learn from everybody. You never stop learning. Just because you're a Grand Master or an 8th degree Master or 7th degree Master or whatever it may be, it doesn't mean that you know everything. You don't know everything. I don't think any of us know everything. I think we're always learning, and we're always trying to make things better for our students, whether it be competitive as competitors, or whether they just want to go through the gradings and hopefully get the black belt. I mean, there's so many people over the years. I'm sure, like a lot of other people, so many people over the years are brought the black belt. They get the black belt, and that's it. Job done. As we all know, you got a black belt, you're only on the fourth rung of the ladder.
Yeah, yeah.
You've come up from you learned your ABCs, and now you're only you're going to learn how to read now.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of people don't see it that way. They achieved what they want to achieve, and that's it. But then you have an awful lot of other people that want to go further, get the second Dan, get the third Dan, get the so on and so on. It was like that myself when I got my fourth Dan. I'll get my second Dan. I'll be happy with my second Dan. No. I'll be happy with my third Dan. No. So on, so on, so on. I think that's all. I think that's in us all, really, you know.
Yeah, yeah. No, I remember that, sir. Yeah. Because people around you sometimes think, well, is that it? You're done now? At the time when you get your second Dan, you kind of, no, I'm going to go on to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. Like you said, you never stop learning. It's So you are you as passionate as you were at the beginning, or more so, or is it just different?
I won't say unfortunately. I'll say fortunately, because it has given me a good, a decent lifestyle in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I say in a way that I love Taekwondo. I love teaching. Do you know what I mean? I'm still teaching. I teach. We have 3 schools. My daughter takes a lot of the juniors as well. I still teaching tonight. Actually, I'm back after being away in Australia for the last 3 weeks, so I'm only back tonight. So I teach on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday morning myself. And then we have other classes going on as well. Probably like yourself, you know what I mean?
Sure. Yes.
As I get older, I want to take a bit of a step back a little bit more. But it's not always easy, you know?
Yeah.
As a full-time instructor, I'm sure you can appreciate that, you know? But but you're a young guy. You have plenty of time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
No, I would love to. I'd love to be in a position that I do teach the younger crowd. My daughter and one of my other instructors, 2 of my other instructors, take on the white belt to green tag. Then I have green tag to black tag, and then I have the junior classes, and then I have my senior classes as well. I take in one of my clubs, I take all the grades. Yeah. Because we don't have time to split them. So in one of my other clubs, then I just would take probably the red belts and the black belts. So, but I've up, and especially on a Sunday morning where we do a technical class, I kind of split my classes up where we don't try to get everything into one class. Yeah. I would have a technical class on a Sunday morning from now, an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then I would have from a red belt right up as far as 5th or 6th degree black belt. And you know yourself, trying to get through all the patterns. Oh yeah. Especially when you get the Juche. Actually, there's a thing, right? That's something I've been trying to. I said it to Grandmaster Morano many years ago. So why don't you bring back Kodang? You remember Kodang?
Yeah, well, it's before my time, but I've seen it. I've heard about it. Yeah,
I think Juche is a great pattern, lovely pattern done by a great technician. Yeah, you know what I mean? Flexible, young guy. And you don't have to be young as long as you can keep very well. Yeah. I think my own personal opinion on this now, right, is this, that I think if Kodang was brought back for the older group, because we do get older people in, you know what I mean, and going for for different grades. But I think if Kodang was given the option to brought back instead of Jun Chuche, and I don't think, for me, I think there's nothing worse than looking at somebody trying to do Juche who doesn't unfortunately have the flexibility to do that. Yeah. Where if they're allowed to do Kodang, and I'm not saying they shouldn't learn it, they should learn it, but if they give the option where they could do Juche or Kodang, because in Kodang there's only 4 kicks. You know what I mean? There's only 2 backside kicks and 2 hook kicks on each side. So I think it would be easier. Something I always thought that might be an idea to bring back, but maybe it will never happen.
No, it's a good point though, sir. Yeah, you're right in that, we all have students that are in, 40s, 50s, 60s that are training as black belts. Juche is a bit of a step far for some of them, isn't it?
It is, I think so, yeah. But it's, I know it has to be done. And Juche, there's a reason Juche was brought in, the Kodang was brought in. Skips my mind at the moment, but I'm sure you can find out for yourself. Somebody will be able to tell you. I know there's a political reason there, but yeah, maybe Koh-Dang would be good for the older generation, if you like.
Yeah, so so once again, just back at your time with in your early days, Taekwondo, you picked it up fairly quickly. You liked the training. It was tough.
Yeah.
It wasn't for everyone at the time, but you picked it up. Did that enable you to use self-defense at all in those times, around that time, or was that just
you mean learning how to do self-defense or having to defend myself?
Ever had to defend yourself?
Just once or twice only, unfortunately. I mean, Taekwondo, as we all know, we have the confidence to walk away, and it's just small little things, nothing major, Sure. But I mean, that's part of the self-defense. I mean, I like doing the self-defense as well. I like all aspects of Taekwondo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Patrons would be probably my favorite thing. Having everything bang on, lines and levels, everything else with the students, and making sure everything, all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed with them, to make sure that they know their stuff, especially if they take a part in big competitions, world or European championships. You have to know their stuff. There's no sense in going out on the floor and just going through the pattern and then finishing. I mean, I before I started winning trophies in patrons, I remember I've always said this to students: when you go on the floor, you have to enjoy yourself. You have to know exactly where you are at every moment on the floor. When I started first, and I'm sure it happens to a lot of people, you go out on the floor for your first couple of competitions, and it's like a blank. You walk out the floor and say, "How did I do? I don't know what I did." Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Have you ever been in that situation?
Yes, no? Sir.
Yeah. So it's just a blank sometimes. And I remember having a couple of times, and I walk out the floor and I say to one of the guys to be with me, "How did I do?" Because I can't remember a thing. But after a while, then I think with confidence and everything else and precision, you get better. And as I've always said to my students, you go on the floor, try and remember everything, try and remember where you are on the floor, try and remember everything perfectly, of course, to the best of your ability, and enjoy yourself. You're there to show off the pattern. You're there showing off, basically. Think about it, right? And you're showing off to the best of your ability, the way you can perform the pattern.
Yeah.
And if you're good enough, you'll pass. And if you're not good enough, well, you don't. I think that's important. You know what I mean? And
yeah. Very much.
Sorry?
That's a great way of putting it. So yeah, like you say, it's very easy to forget that they're enjoying themselves because the nerves.
I think they focus too much on, I have to win, I have to win, I have to win. You don't have to win. You go out and enjoy yourself. Yeah. Winning will come. If you're good enough, winning will come. You know what I mean? Just, even with competitions, I say to my junior students, so the most important thing is enjoying yourself. Go, learn something from it.
Yeah.
If you take back, even going to a technical seminar, whatever it may be, if you're showing a lot of stuff, if you come back after only learning 2 or 3 things, but then it was worth your while going. Do you know what I mean? The same in competition. If you go away and you take part in the competition, the more competition you take part in, the better you become, the more confidence you get. Do you know what I mean? And then hopefully then things start, falling into place, and you're going to maybe win a few medals, whatever it may be. That's what I think. Yeah,
nice. Brilliant words. And obviously you've proved that many times with your teams and the victories, the tournaments and everything. So do you teach the tenets of Taekwondo, or how do you teach?
Of course. Yes.
Oath and everything.
Tennis Taekwondo, very, very important to me. I think obviously, courage, integrity, perseverance, self-control, and dominant spirit. We try to instill that into all our members. Before every class, we say the oath, always bow to flags, bow to the instructor. That's always all the technical, or that side of Taekwondo is very, very important to me. You know what I mean? We do teach the tenets of Taekwondo. We ask the kids what tenets of Taekwondo are. We'll make them try and understand what it is, because it'll do them in later life. It has done me in later life. It has taught me, hopefully has taught me, and the way I do things now. the way I try and bring on my students is the way I have learned at tennis taekwondo, and it's been part of my life for the last 50 years. At the early years, I didn't know, obviously, like everybody else, but as you grow in taekwondo, you learn more and more and more each time. But yeah, that's always very important to me anyway. You know, I know some people say taekwondo was a sport, and there is some people out there that only look at it as a sport. To me, it's the technical side of taekwondo is very important. It's a martial art and a sport. It has to be both combined together. But personally, my personal opinion is I prefer the martial arts side of it. Sport to me is the secondary part of it.
Yeah.
You know, where you're learning your martial art, you're learning your fundamental movements, important. And as a child or as a white belt, sometimes can be very, very boring. You know what I mean? But you've got to stick with it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I mean, some of the instructors, you know, say, oh, you know, I want to go on to move on to this. And I said, no, you got to learn, you got to do this, you got to learn this. Once you got it right, it's like learning the turn. You know the way we turn in taekwondo?
Yeah.
It's like learning the turn in taekwondo. Like learning the right width in the walking stance, the right length in the walking stance. I say to them, once you've learned it, once you've got it right, you'll never forget it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But if you do it wrong, you'll also never forget it. Because you keep doing it wrong. So do it right the first time around. Excuse me. Have it right the first time around, and you'll never lose it from the time you're a white belt till the time you're finished doing taekwondo. You know? So I think in that aspect of it. But then again, as I say, come back to the tennis, I think it's important, very important, because I've had people that have come up as far as maybe colour belts with me, red belt, maybe even first and black belts, and I've met them years and years later, and they've always said to me, "Listen, you know something? The time I spent with you and what you instilled into us, as regards to tennis taekwondo, has done me justice today in later life as I got older." I mean, I think you couldn't get a better compliment. I think. You know what I mean? So as regards tennis taekwondo, certainly, very, very, very much into that.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it was explained to me once, similar, like you said, where 20 years time they won't remember the kicking and punching so much. They'll remember that message you gave them, that story, that anecdote about something, like you said, perseverance, self-control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's good for people. You know, it's going to help them in later life. There's no doubt about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's up to them at the end of the day. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. So an instructor can take someone so far, but it's the student
that depends on the student, doesn't it? Really? Yeah. You know what I mean? You can only teach the students so much. They have to want to learn, and they have to want to progress. And if they do, they will, and they'll get better, and they will get better at the end of the day. But it's like the old saying: as you get older, as you're younger, as generals always said, you teach with your body, and as you get older, then you can't kick anymore. I can still do. I'm okay. I've had my injuries. I've had a hip replacement. I've had a knee replacement. But I'm still fine. I'm still able to kick and punch. But as I get older, then I teach more with telling them what to do more so. I have the younger guys getting out there. I'm bringing my young guys. You're flexible. You're shove the kick. But I'm still okay. I'm still teaching. I still love teaching, and I still love doing what I'm doing. Will I be doing it in 10 years' time? Don't know. Don't know. I mean, my old instructor that I started with back in 1973 is still active, and he's 83, I think.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So
that's amazing. I mean, do you have a training regime that you follow, or do you just train when you want to train, sort of thing? Or
when I'm teaching, I stretch out with everybody. I don't just stand there and let them stretch out. I do all the stretching myself. I do all the calisthenics with them. I do all the sit-ups, everything else with them.
Yeah. And
sometimes I'm amazed and say, well, how can he still do that? I think if you're doing it for 50 years, it just becomes part of your life. You know what I mean? Yeah. I try to do as much as I can. Do you know what I mean? I certainly keep up with my patrons all the time, as you have to. I mean, I have 6-degree black belt, so I'm teaching from Chunji, obviously Sergeant making from Chunji right up as far as Tongue Hill.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So yeah, I'm teaching all the patches all the time. So I have to know all the patches. I have to know all the lines and levels. I have to know all my stuff.
Yeah.
Because they expect it on me.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
And this is what I say, you know, to all instructors, know your stuff, because if you don't know it, then you can't teach properly. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, sir, it's been fantastic here sitting here listening to you. You've made some fantastic points for myself and anyone listening that wants to gain knowledge, and from someone like yourself with so much experience. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me. It's been an excellent podcast. I'm so pleased that we were able to do it.
Thank you. And thanks for having me.
No, my pleasure, sir. Fantastic.
Okay. Thank you very much.